I guess I'm live? Okay, it's weird. It's different than last time. Last time I don't know, OBS was weird. It's like I had to click start stream, and then also click go live. Why there's two different buttons, I don't know. But now the go live thing is not there, and it's just streaming, I assume. Should I bring up YouTube? Am I streaming? Why is it different this time? Is it because I had two streams scheduled? I don't know. Let's go to... It says live. And it says it's streaming, so I assume everything is okay. So, alright. Well, anyways, okay. Hey, that TFL stuff was pretty cool, huh? If you didn't check it out, go watch it. Even if you're not an English teacher, go watch me rant about a shitty company. You won't believe how shitty they are. So anyways, let's do the usual thing. I did actually do a lot of work this week, but it's not a lot to actually show off, which is another reason why I wanted to do the TFL thing today, because I don't know how long the stream will be. But I always say that, and then it winds up being way longer than I think. So we'll find out. But I did do some work. I didn't actually start anything on the cave. I didn't even get the corridor that goes between, like the town and the level itself. I didn't even get that set up. I should have put the drink in first before I put in the Coke, but oh well. Just give it a stir. And then we'll do it. Pencil. Alright. Yep. Usual drink. Alright. So... first, I did want to work on a mechanic that I thought of for the cave level. I don't have the cave set up yet, so I don't have like the appropriate environment for testing it, but that's not entirely necessary. So I am here in the sandbox. This part of the sandbox, I don't know if I shown off on stream. It's not super important. It's just where I test the tile sets. So it is still part of the sandbox, as you can see. And the reason why I wanted to test it here is because I needed a place that didn't have a lot of events and also had plenty of water. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate this real fast, and then we can talk about it and the flaws that it has. I didn't. Yeah. I need to set the player here. Let's try that again. Okay, so first we need an item to do it. So that just gives me the item. And if we go here to key items, we have 10 fish. So the way that this works is, so right now, if I go to fish and use it, it just says no. I can't use it here. But if we go over next to the water and use it, we'll create these jump platforms. And if I stand on this platform, it will despawn, which will move me back over here. So what this is my idea was from like the Wind Waker. Can I bring this up? Wind Waker water pots. Yeah, okay. So I can kind of demonstrate this real fast. So like in Wind Waker, you'd have these water pots here. Here's a better... Oh, that's still really small. Never mind. You'd have these water pots here that you can throw onto this lava. And if you throw it into the lava, it will create these little platforms for you to stand on, which will stay there for a moment before despawning. So that was kind of where the idea came from. So basically, oh, I have a... Oh, I don't know how I got the frame counter up. I think I discovered that one on one of the previous streams. Anyways, so the idea is there would actually be lava here. You'd throw the fish, and then you'd be able to jump across. So there are some problems. Like if I stand here, like right now it doesn't kill me, and now I'm sort of soft locked here. In fact, actually, I don't even think I can throw another fish. Yeah, so actually this would be a soft lock at this point. The one thing that I would probably do is I'd make sure that there's always 3 tiles width. So let's refresh real fast so we can fix myself. So if I throw a fish, so you'd see that there's a tile that I jump over, the tile that I stand on, and then another tile that I jump over. So that's 3 tiles width. So I'd probably make sure that there's always 3 tiles. And make sure that it's never require the player to do more than that. But there's still a lot of problems with this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it or not. Let's go over the logic of this and how it works. So it runs a few things. So first, here's the fish that gets thrown out right here. So this fish is actually controlled by a common event. Here, fish. So basically what happens is when I call the item, when I use the item from my inventory, it calls this common event. And all this common event does is it takes a fish somewhere on the map, hopefully where the player can't see the fish, moves that fish underneath the player, and then makes the fish jump a certain distance away from where the player is looking. So first of all, you'll see that just the way that programming is done is that it's always, I have to do a bunch of ifs. If the player is facing left, if the player is facing right, if the player is facing up, if the player is facing down, because there isn't a jump away from player function. Like there is a move away from players, so I could technically just assign it to the player and have them move away, but I can't have them jump away. So if I wanted to have that like convincing kind of arc to the movement to make it look like the player actually threw it, I have to use the jump function. If I'm going to use the jump function, then I have to check which way the player is facing. So that's annoying. So anyways, that's all the common event does. It also checks whether I can throw it right now or not. And how it's able to check if I can throw it or not is just using regions. So I put these regions here. And so basically, as long as the player is standing on a 1, then they are able to throw the fish. If they are not on a 1, then they cannot throw the fish. This is the if they're not standing on a 1. It just says no. And I'll change that obviously in the game, of course, but this is just for playtesting, just for prototyping this mechanic, because it's surprisingly complex for such a simple little thing. So that's just moving the fish to the location. And now that the fish is there, the rest of the logic happens in the fish itself. So we switch over to here because the fish thrown switch gets turned on. That switch gets turned on in the common event. You can see here, fish thrown turned on. Or actually, that's turned off. That's just for safety measures to make sure that it's turned off in case some weird interruption happens in the logic. It does turn off in the fish itself. But here it is, fish thrown on. So once the switch gets turned on, it changes to the tile, and also it will subtract the fish at this point. So that's kind of the interesting thing is it won't subtract the fish from your inventory until it reaches this point when it changes into the tile. And the reason is because it is possible to throw the fish while it is smoke. That's like when it puffs away. And it would feel really shitty if you're quick enough that you like jump over the tile, you get to another place to need to throw the fish, and then you throw the fish again, but that one just disappeared, so you basically just throw smoke and you're not able to jump. So rather than removing the fish from their inventory unfairly because the game wasn't quick enough to keep up with the player, I just subtract the fish only when it's actually become the tile. So anyway, so it subtracts the fish, checks the number of fish. If the fish is... Actually, that's probably not going to work now that I think about it. Because if you have one, you have to have one in your... Whoa. Is that right? I need to check this logic later. Anyways, there's a lot of problems with this this mechanic that I don't know if I can implement it or not, and I'm going to talk about that. But let's just go over the logic as it is now, the general logic, and I'll probably have to improve some stuff because I don't know if I need this here because I wouldn't be able to execute this logic if I didn't have any fish in my inventory to begin with. But it checks the number there, and then... Yeah, anyways, like I said. So now, here's also some more annoying shit. So this part right here, if the player is facing left, I'm going to have to copy that function for each of the cardinal directions. So up, left, up, left, down, right. So yeah, I'll have... it's not very efficient to me, is copying... It's repeating the same code, but just for a slight variation for... like I said, the cardinal directions. So, yeah. So basically what it does is this part is now moving the jump tiles. So for this demonstration, I gave the jump tiles some art. But in the actual game itself, the jump tiles would be invisible. So you'll see, if I close this out, you'll see these are the jump tiles right here. So right now they're just sitting... This would be off screen somewhere, so they'd basically be invisible to the player. And then whenever the player has a fish and throws it, it's going to take those tiles and move them to where the player can actually use them. So let me demonstrate that. So you can see the tiles are up here, just like right at the top of this cliff. And so I'm going to... Not item, key item. I'm going to throw it, and now you'll... Oh, sorry. Yeah. You'll see now that they have moved down. So these are the jump tiles. Oh, fuck. Well, I just soft-locked myself. I should have done that. But anyways, it moves them to where they need to be to allow the player to jump. And so the reason why it checks which way the player is facing is because it needs to know... where to put the tiles. Like, if the player is facing up, but it has the current logic, then it's going to put the tiles this way, basically. Or it's going to be, one of them's going to be in front of the player, but the player's going to jump this way when they need to jump this way, if that makes sense. So, yeah, so that's why that logic needs to be there. Yeah, I will say I'm a little bit stupid when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I was wondering, how can I know, like, how can I know where to put the tile based on where this primary tile is? This primary tile, let's just call the fish. This is the one that gets thrown. So I throw this primary tile, and now I need to know where it's been thrown. Where do I put the jump tiles? And so I realize I can just subtract 2 and add 2 to the X position. So we could say, for this case, we're going to call the origin. The origin of this is going to be wherever the primary tile, this one, the fish, wherever the fish gets placed. That's the origin. So now it's using an X, Y coordinates. So this, it knows where to put the fish based on an X, Y coordinate. So it knows this is the origin. Now I've taken that X coordinate and subtracted 2 from it, which should move it, which should shift it to where it needs to put the jump tile. I know it's difficult to explain, but I'm proud of this because it took me forever to figure out, like, how can I make it know where to put the jump tile? And I figured it out. So anyways, and then from there, this is just like the timer stuff. that shows like the exclamation point that kind of indicates to the player that, oh, the tile is about to disappear. And then it switches over to here, which just plays the little smoke, like the tile goes up in smoke. Poof. And then resets a bunch of stuff. Also checks if the player was standing on the origin, as I called it, the fish tile itself. If they hadn't moved, then it assigns what happens here. So it just subtracts some health from the player. I assume this will be lava, not water, so they'll lose some health for falling in the lava or falling in the lava. And then it moves the player back to a designated place to try again. So yeah, so this took actually quite a bit of time to prototype, and it still has problems with it. So one of the problems is the fact that I don't really have control over the event numbers. So every time you create an event in RPG Maker, you can see here, this is EV008. And if I just create another one, this is EV009. And another one would be EV010, right? Okay, so every time you create an event, it just increments the current number of events. And those, like, this is just a title, to be clear. However, in the back end, you can even see here, that ID is still relevant. Even if you change the name, it still holds the same position with its ID. It's still going to be the 10th event, etc. So here's the problem with that and using common events. So this fish, where is it? Yeah, here. Set movement route of event fish toss. And fish toss is 1, 2, 3, 4. Event number 4. Actually, it says 3. So event, it's probably indexed is what it is. So it is the 4th event, but it has the 3rd ID. Anyways, so here's the problem. This logic that is in the common event is always it's not looking for the event named fish toss. That's not what it's looking for. It's looking for ID 003. So say for example, I don't know, create like a really big level that has a bunch of events in it, and just so happen to forget to add the fish to the level. Well, now if I add an event, it's going to have the ID of number 38 in it, and it is not going to be ID number 3. Instead, I don't know what event or what ID number 3 is. Oh, it's this one right here. This is event ID number 3. So, now in this level that I've already put a bunch of events in, whenever I call that common event, it's going to call this, which is a transfer. It's basically a transfer between the level and the corridor between the city. So it's just a transfer. So anytime the player touches it, it moves them to a different map. So every time I call that common event for the fish toss, instead of it throwing the fish, it's throwing this event. And that's not going to work. So I have to be absolutely 100% sure that when I add the fish to the map, that it is the, like I said, it's probably indexed. So I have to make sure that it is the 4th event that I add to the map. It cannot be anything more and it cannot be anything less. And if I forget to do that, well, if it's less, if I forget to do it when it's less, no problem. I can just, add a couple of buffer events in there that are meaningless, just to increment the current event ID up to 3. But if it's more, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it other than like completely reconstructing the map, because RPG Maker doesn't give you any sort of tools to edit the order of event IDs. And like I said, it doesn't read the event names. RPG Maker doesn't care what the name of the event is. it only cares what that ID number is. And with no way to edit ID numbers, once I have implemented more than the ID number 3 event on the map, it's over. Like, I can't use that fish anymore without having to redo the whole map. So yeah, that's one of the really, really big problems with using this system. I like the idea, but it has a lot of problems that are not easy to implement in RPG Maker. I'm sure it could be easy to implement if I knew how to like do JavaScripting and stuff like that, but I don't. I'm just using the tools that I'm given here. So yeah, and it's really tough to be able to implement that properly. So I don't know if I will use it. I do really like the idea. I have some cool ideas for how to use this in the level. So I'm going to try to make it work if I can. And I might even do some more research into maybe either plugins that can help me get this achieved, or I don't know, maybe JavaScripting, maybe learn enough JavaScript to be able to make it. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But maybe I can ask around on the RPG Maker forums, and maybe someone has some ideas there on how to get this to work. Which, like, side note, I've referenced the RPG Maker forums a few times now for this game, and I gotta say, like, for a forum, and it's an old school forum, it's not like a Reddit forum, it's just like the old message boards kind of forum. I'm really impressed, actually. People's responses are usually quick and very informative. I used the Unity forums a couple of times, and responses were... I mean, I don't care about speed when I'm using forums because generally it's kind of slow. But I guess it's worth mentioning it was much slower there on the Unity forums to get a response. And when I did, it was not very clear. It seemed like the guy was very helpful, but he had way too high of expectations of my knowledge of Unity. And I mean, that's kind of been my general experience with Unity, is people seem to overestimate the amount of knowledge I have, and I don't think they mean for it this way, but it kind of comes off as gatekeepery, like unintentional gatekeeping, because despite putting it in my topic, usually in the threads I post, I make it very clear that, you know, like, I'm new to all of this, but when they come in there and just don't make things clear for a newbie, it feels like gatekeeping almost. Like, oh, if you can't keep up with me, then, you know, you're no good for this. So, I don't know. Compared to the Unity forums, I've had a much better experience using RPG Maker's forums. And that's coming from, I mean, like, that's pretty impressive considering that this is coming from a software that's kind of intended for kids. There's some smart kids. Actually, most of the folks that I see using the forums a lot, kind of, I don't know anything about them, but they generally strike me as older people who are just doing this as a hobby, much like myself. So, yeah, maybe that's why they're more polite. Maybe the kids are not really using the forums that much. I don't know, but it's been a good experience. So I'm not afraid to go there and ask for help on how to maybe make this system work. So maybe I'll see about doing that. But because I do want it to work, like I said, I do have some pretty cool ideas for it. And I think it really does kind of give the level its own unique gimmick. Because as I mentioned before, the previous idea I had for it, the unique gimmick really didn't come until the end, which just might not feel acceptable because you might not even realize that's the level's gimmick until you get to the end. And when you're at the end, you might not even realize it's the gimmick. And so it just otherwise feels like a fairly unremarkable level with a maybe slightly kind of cool boss. So at least now, if I could have something cool for the level that eventually leads to a cool boss, then I think it will be a pretty memorable experience. So let's try to do that. So anyways, yeah, let's move on to some other stuff that I worked on. So I worked on balancing a lot, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think last time I had talked about possibly inverting the way that damage ramps in the game. So I did do that. Previously, damage ramped exponentially, or the stacks ramped. The rate of new stacks ramped exponentially. So it became easier and easier and easier to start applying stacks. But it's like the first stack was the most difficult to apply. The next stack was slightly easier. The third stack was easy. The fourth stack is very easy. And then the last stack is just a breeze to apply. And I don't know why I did that in the first place. However, I decided to invert that process where now applying the first stack is fairly easy, but after that point, it becomes harder and harder and harder to apply more stacks. And I like this way more. First of all, let's talk about the first stack problem. So like I said, in the previous version of this, the first stack was the most difficult to apply. And it felt awful. Like, I mean, it felt like the game was like my fucking tutor in TEFL just flunking me all the time with no apparent reason. Like, it felt like the game was just insulting me. Like, ha! You didn't get the stack for the fourth time in the row. And so, yeah, by inverting this, it feels much more satisfying because you're actually able to like interact with the main core mechanic of the game, which is applying these element stacks in combat, right? So being able to get that first stack on easier has definitely made a huge improvement to the way that the game feels in general. Secondly, I also feel like things feel way more in control for the player. Like, yeah, it's more difficult to start getting the last stack, and I've actually yet to have gotten 5 stacks on an enemy, so I might lighten that up because it might be a little bit too difficult to get 5 stacks on an enemy. But this has also been reversed for enemies, which makes it feel better for the player. So enemies also are easy. It is easier for them to apply the initial stack to the player. However, it's much harder for them to apply future stacks to the player, which makes it, again, feel like it's more fair because previously, it kind of felt like the fight was over once a single stack was applied. Like, once you have one stack on you, you could already feel a ton of pressure. Like, holy shit, if they get one more stack on me, the amount of damage they're going to be doing is going to be unmanageable. And once they have 2 stacks, it is a breeze for them to get any more stacks on me. So it just basically means at 2 stacks, they're going to apply the next 3 stacks like that, and it's fucking over. And so by inverting this so that it's more difficult, I don't reach those points as quickly. Now, I have been balancing some fights, and I did actually get to 4 stacks one time, which is pretty scary. But the thing was that it was still a struggle for the enemy to get there, that it felt like I had more control over the situation. Like with the ramping so quickly into applying stacks, it's almost like this turn you're getting a stack, next turn you got 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 a stack, next turn you're dead. So, you know, it felt like there was like it was completely out of your control. Now, the enemies have to be very lucky to get 4 stacks, especially 5. Like I said, I saw up to 4. I didn't see 5 from the enemies, but they have to be very lucky to get to 4, and it's not every turn that they're getting all 4. It's usually you'll get 1 stack applied, and you'll have quite a bit of breathing room before they apply the next one, and then when they apply the next one, it becomes very difficult for them to apply a 3rd stack. So by that point, it's very likely that the stacks will fade. You will outlast their turn count, so they'll just disappear before they can even apply another stack. So it just feels you move out to a very quiet countryside area to get away from noisy fucking vehicles. And then you have jagoffs like this who fucking at nearly 11 o'clock at night like to fucking race their cars, or actually I think it's motorcycles. Fuck these guys, man. I know they live here too because it's I hear them regularly and I hate it. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, stacks. Anyways, point is basically it's much harder for the enemies to apply more stacks, which makes it much easier for the player to survive their attacks, and makes the player feel like they're in more control of the situation. So, yeah, I did that, and I definitely like the change. I had to play around with the numbers a little bit, but overall, it's huge improvement to the game. I'm glad I did that. Speaking of huge improvements, it's small, but I think very significant, is I changed up some of the art. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate a fight for you now, because one of the other things that I did was I also worked on all of the gear in the game. So all of the gear has been designed. Now at this point, I just have to probably balance it. So here's the thing. I changed up a lot of the art. I found an icon set that was available for free by a very generous artist in the RPG Maker community. That's another thing about RPG Maker. I definitely appreciate how much sharing of assets goes on within the RPG Maker community. The number of assets available, I think, is dwarfed by something like the Unity store and probably even the Unreal store, but the people who do develop assets are usually fairly generous with them. So, yeah, there's a lot of free assets for RPG Maker. Definitely appreciate that. So, I can show you these new icons. Some of them are completely, like, just unaltered versions of the icons that were available in the icon list that the person made. A couple of the icons, I actually kind of, like, took some of their icons and some of the icons I was already using and kind of like merged them into a completely new icon. So you'll see some of that. Let's show off some of this equipment before we get into the fight. So not all the weapons are here. I don't know why. I just haven't bothered because I talked about weapons in the past. So there's basically two versions of the weapons. You have one version of the weapon that does elemental damage instead of physical damage. So it can do like a fire attack or an electric attack or a wind attack. But it has a very, very low chance of applying a stack of an element stack to the enemy. So the way that this I visioned is that this is for more like the person who is able to get lots of stacks on the enemy. So basically, using your magic, you're casting lots of stacks on the enemies using magic, building up those stacks. But because these weapons do wind attacks, so say you have 5 wind stacks on the enemy, then you can now just use your basic attack to attack the enemy with your sword and do wind damage, which means you're getting that wind damage multiplier with your basic attack. So that's the way I saw that working. Now, the inverse of that is that your weapon does physical damage, so it gets no benefits from element stacks. It doesn't matter if you have 5 fire stacks or 5 electric stacks or 5 wind stacks, it gets no bonus at all. However, the weapon does have a very high chance of applying a stack to the enemy. So this is for someone who would rather do more magic stuff. So basically they build up the stacks using their basic attacks, and then once they have enough stacks, they can just start using their regular magic to do lots of damage. So basically it's kind of an inverse. So one of them is about building stacks with magic and then doing lots of damage with physical attacks, while or I guess your regular attacks, I shouldn't say physical attacks, with your regular attacks. And then the other one is to build up lots of stacks with your regular attacks, but then do lots of damage with your magic attacks. So it's kind of just the inverse of each other. So anyways, so yeah, these are the weapons. Like I said, I'm still missing one. I have the high chance of applying fire, but I don't have the fire-based attack weapon. So yeah, here they are. I've been using mostly thermo ignition right now because all of the enemies in the seas are weak to fires, so obviously thermo ignition is the best one to use. Now, so let's actually first let's go over accessory 2 first. So these ones I mentioned before. The idea behind these accessories. So accessory 1 is usually very powerful, but you're sacrificing something at the cost of that power. While accessory 2 are usually much weaker in the benefits that they give to the player, but there's no negative side effects. So, for example, right here, the very first one, Ribbon, just gives a very small improvement to your stack rate, which is your luck. It's your ability to apply stacks to enemies. It's small, but still beneficial. Here we have the Confidence Booster, restores a small amount of confidence points each turn. Fairly straightforward. Healthy Boost is the same thing except for health. A Tight Choker. So this one's really fun, and it'll probably be a late game one is where I think this one's going to go. It greatly increases your confidence points. Here's why I think this is fun. So it's not stated clearly in the game. In a sense, you could say this is a hidden mechanic. This is a hidden way of the way numbers interact with this game. So on the surface, having more confidence points seems kind of useless because most of your fights, you start with low confidence points and you build up confidence points by getting hit, guarding, or attacking, using your regular attacks, not your magic attacks. So generally speaking, you don't really need a huge magic pool. There's no reason to have a huge magic pool because your point is to get confidence points and then burn them. So you're basically doing, like attack, attack, burn, attack, attack, burn. So you're always at a fairly low number of confidence points. But here's where the kind of hidden side of it all comes in. A lot of the magic restore functions that happen, like when the enemy attacks you, when you guard. Those are the two things that are most important. Both of these, when you guard or when the enemy attacks you, they are functions of percentages. They are not flat numbers. So I never state this clearly. I just hope people will figure this out. Having a large confidence points pool effectively increases the amount of confidence points you can restore each turn. It increases the amount of points that you receive when you get attacked or when you guard, because if you have a really big pool of confidence points, then an attack that restores 5% confidence points is going to restore a lot more when you have a big pool than if you had a small pool. So take, for example, you know how percentages work. So take, for example, if we had 20 confidence points, then a 5% restoration would only be 2 points of confidence, 2 confidence points. But if we have 100 points of a magic pool, then a 5% would be that would be 5. That would be 5. So, anyways, and the thing is, it's like the cost of magic skills stays the same. So if it costs 6 points to cast a skill, then getting 5 points restored in a single attack, and if there's multiple enemies, then that's 5% for each end of the enemy's attacks. That means within a single turn of enemies' attacks, you've already restored more than enough points to be able to use your magic again. So I really like that hidden mechanic. It's not the most hidden, but for those who are savvy enough to figure out, some of these things are functions of percentages, meaning that having a higher number means better. So But I do think there'll be a handful of people who are thinking, well, who cares about confidence points? You're constantly burning them, and you always start with 0, so who cares how big your pool is? So I think there is something kind of fun about this one. So like I said, it'll probably be an endgame one. It's the one I've been running with the most through a lot of my testing with these gears. I've always come back to it, which probably tells me it's probably a little bit too powerful. But I did actually adjust the amount of confidence points that it gives you. I think originally it was 25, and I just found it to be way too much. I was almost always at the top of my total magic points, my total confidence points, because the amount of points that I would earn per turn would be more than I could burn. So I was always topped off in magic points, which seems a little bit too overpowered. So I did actually tone it down a little bit. But having a lot of confidence points isn't really the end of the world either, because there's many other things you have to take care of. So other things that we have. This one, Blue Velvet Garter, just gives you a flat increase to your magic attack. This is actually pretty powerful because all my numbers are fairly low. 1 point in magic attack is pretty significant. So yeah, I will probably still put this one, and I think the Ruby Pierce, the next one, yeah, I'll probably put both of these at the beginning of the game because I do think they'll be changed out for more nuanced approaches. But there's a lot of cool nuanced stuff you can do with these things, the way that they interact together between accessory 1 and accessory 2. But anyways, Ruby Pierce does the same thing, but for physical attack. Emerald Guard, a small bit of insurance against the elements. So this one gives a slight reduction in enemies' chance to apply element stacks. So this just gives stack resistance, and I think it's only 10%. I did use it, and it seemed actually that 10% seemed fairly effective. So it might be a little bit too powerful, but I don't know. It could be a good mid-tier accessory, especially versus Sharpen Plus. We'll get to that. Balancing them out has been tough, but I really like their difficulty curve now. Outdoorsman Coat slightly reduces the damage taken from elements. So this one reduces the chance of the element stack being applied. This one just reduces the element damage flat out, which again I think is just another 10% reduction. So the best defense, the very best. You want better? Pah! Go see Von Ardo. If you get that reference, then I don't know. You get internet points or something. So anyways, it increases your defense, and it's the only item to do so. I really didn't use the defense. I almost considered cutting defense out of the game as well, and just keeping everything a little bit more simplified for calculating stats. Unfortunately, so many of the skills include defense in their calculations that it would take way too long to go back and change that now. That, fuck it, whatever. So all the skills use a function of, the caster's stats plus, so like the enemy. So the enemy calculates their attacks by like this. It's generally the enemy's magic attack or physical attack plus the player's level, and then maybe one numeral in addition to that, so, or one change in that number depending on if I want the attack to be more powerful or less powerful. So it might be player's level +1 or player level -1, whatever it is. So that's going to be their damage, the total damage function, and then that gets subtracted, or then the defense gets subtracted from that. So all of the skills calculate that way. So it's like some stats plus player level subtract defense, and so removing the subtract defense from all the calculations, then having to rebalance the skills appropriately by removing the defense calculation from it would be a nightmare. So whatever, I just took advantage of this and added the best defense, and it's the only item to increase your defense in the entire game, and it doesn't increase it a lot, but it's I guess it's enough to make a difference. And then finally, this was the last one I implemented, and I had a really tough time coming up with like one more very basic accessory that is not too powerful, that I think like has no negative side effects. You know, like it's basically that would function like any of these other ones. I've pretty much covered all of the main points in this game as far as I could think of. So coming up with one more was really tough. The reason why I had to come up with 10 is because I think I'm going to put these items in the shop, and there's going to be one accessory per community rank. So at rank 1, there's going to be one of these items. 2, there's going to be another one. 3, a new one's going to get added, and so on and so forth, all the way up to rank 10. So I felt like I had to come up with 10, and I managed to come up with 9 good ones, and then I just kind of had to force it for the last one. But I still think this is an okay compromise. It actually functions differently than all of the other ones. You learn 3 new skills that guarantee a state stack. They don't do damage. They cost a lot of MP to use. That's the way I balanced it. But they do have a 100% chance of applying an elemental stack to an enemy. So it's not so bad. The balancing is, first of all, you're giving up your accessory 2 slot for these skills. That means you're giving up any other stat buffs that you may get. So that's pretty good balancing right there already. Second of all, these skills don't do damage. And third of all, they cost a lot of MP to use. They're like 14 MP. And the reason why I put it at such a high MP cost is because, like, it's pretty fucking worthless to use it at 1 stack, 2 stacks, and probably even 3 stacks. But at 3 stacks, maybe you're going to want that guarantee to get up to 4 stacks. And maybe you're going to want that guarantee to get up to 5 stacks. So basically, these skills will 100% guarantee you in 5 turns, you can apply 5 stacks of 5 element stacks to the enemy. And that's actually pretty powerful, because getting up to 5 stacks, you are doing 200% damage. I think it's more than that. I think it's 220% damage. So if you can get there in 5 turns, that's really fucking powerful. So that's why it needed to be balanced. And I still think 14 might be too low, especially considering what I was saying about like the tight choker here that increases your confidence points. Like if you have a really big confidence pool, you'd probably be able to get 14 points within a single turn. So 14 might still be too low. So I might increase it some more. Anyways, so those are your accessory 2 items. Down here, or not down here, but accessory 1, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun. There's only 6 of these, and I could probably come up with some more. It's funny. It's kind of the inverse of accessory 2, because in accessory 2, I had to really kind of force the last accessory that I had to come up with. With accessory 1, I've had a number of different fun ideas that I think I could probably implement. However, I'm thinking that you will acquire these accessories in the levels themselves, usually through additional like side content. I mentioned that there's like an optional puzzle that you have to come back to. If we go here, I mentioned this last time. So if the player comes to this map, if this was their first level that they go to, the seas, if they go to the seas as the first level, they're going to come here and see this, and they're not going to be able to do it right away. And each level is going to have one puzzle like this, where no matter what, if this was your first level, you're not going to be able to do it right away. You're going to have to come back later, because you need an item from a different level to be able to cross this gap. And so one of these items will go there, and then there's going to be one more item that you should be able to access on your first visit to the level. That would be here. That will give you one of these. So basically what I'm saying is each level will have 2 of these accessory 1 items in it. And if there's 3 levels, that means I need 6. So here you are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can look over these. So the Wife's Brooch makes the wearer feel more magically powerful, but it also seems tougher to do magic things. So, what this does is it greatly increases the user's magic attack. However, the magic costs more to do. I think it makes all your magic 40% more expensive. So, since the numbers are fairly low, I think it rounds up, down. Rounds down? I don't know. Your basic attacks normally cost 6, but now they'll cost 8. And your healing, this is pretty devastating, normally costs 10, but then goes up to 14, which is pretty rough. So, yeah, that's what it does. Hair tied too tight. I think I actually talked about these two before. Hair tied too tight restores a lot of confidence each turn, but lose a little health each turn. So, this one restores about 10% confidence each turn. But as it says, you'll lose a little bit of health. I actually really like this one. I think it's kind of funny. I don't know. It's a funny name. It's a funny concept for it. I like this one. I don't use it that much though, because confidence restoration is not very important. It does restore confidence based on a percentage, and if you remember, if we couple this with this, that works out really well because suddenly my MP pool is really big, so the amount of confidence it restores each turn becomes a lot more, but you are getting basically no benefits to your damage output or even your survivability. It is just the amount of skills you can cast, which is not the best. It's not the best strategy. So I don't know. Maybe I can change that in the future. I am kind of happy with it though. It might be an early game. Well, I can't really choose whether it's early game or not, but it will probably be one of the accessories that you can get on your first visit to a level, and not one of the accessories that are hidden behind a puzzle that requires you to have visited another level, if that makes sense. So anyways, Gnarly Necklace makes the wearer feel more physically powerful and can stack stuff elements easier, but they also feel magically weaker. So this is the only one that actually has double benefits on it, I believe. Is it? I think it is. No, not necessarily. Okay. There is one more that does have double benefits. But yeah, so my idea behind this is it greatly boosts your physical attack and your stack rate. So the idea here is that even though your magic attack is greatly reduced, you can still use your magic to apply stacks. So that's why it increases your stack rate so much, is that you can use your magic to apply a bunch of stacks and then use your physical attacks to do a lot of damage. So yeah, and that would couple with your weapon. So you'd probably want to get an element weapon on there. So like this one does wind damage, so you'd want to equip the wind damage weapon with this, and then that way you'd be trying to use as many skills as you can to apply as many stacks as you can, and then you can use physical attacks because your attack is so high to deal a lot of damage. So yeah, that's the idea there. Heavy earrings. This is where it starts getting interesting. The next three are all like really kind of wacky out there kind of things. So heavy earrings is very similar to the Wife's Brooch in the way that it boosts your magic attack, but it completely removes your physical attack. So now you can only guard and you can only use your magic attacks, and that's it. So you can no longer swing your sword. I like this one a lot. It kind of changes up the strategy because the thing is that physical attacks in the game are very useful because when you use a physical attack, not only does it do damage to the enemy, but it also can restore your confidence. So it is a very useful skill when you want to continue to dish out damage to the enemies, but you can also get a little bit confidence back too, so that way you'd be able to cast more powerful magic next. I find myself quite regularly switching between the three different important commands. You have attack, magic, and guard, and I find myself switching between them quite regularly because what guard does, so attack restores a flat amount of magic each time you attack. So I think it's 3 points. So you just get a flat 3 points. And that's very beneficial at the beginning of the game, where 3 points is pretty useful. But as you get later into the game, a flat point damage or point amount is not as useful, which makes guard very useful because it restores percentage-wise. So using guard will restore at a later point in the game will be restoring way more than it does at the beginning of the game. But either way, guard does also reduce damage that you take. So I don't know. It's there's a lot of strategy between switching between those 3 skills. It's all about trying to build up that confidence points to cast the magic. And so using physical attacks is an important part, and removing it changes your strategy, which is what makes it interesting. Speaking of changing strategies, the perma-stacks coat. The user is able to do twice the stuff, but only has half the confidence to do it. So this one is interesting. So it allows for 2 actions per turn, but your max confidence points are greatly reduced. So I think now the player only has 16 points at level 10. So yeah, it's pretty tough. It's definitely kind of a late game item, because I think too early on it would cut your confidence points down by way too much to be viable. But it does give you 2 actions per turn, which is pretty cool. Now the balances, I realized that you'd basically be able to double the number of attacks that you can do. So it does reduce your attack. You can still do more physical damage with this because you could do 2 attacks per turn, but it's not double damage because it does reduce your attack. And if I remember correctly, it reduces your attack percentage-wise. So right now at level 1, it's not a lot, but it does, the amount that it reduces your attack will grow as you grow. So yeah. And the last one, which is pretty fun, the Juggler's Noose. Makes the wearer super ultra very lucky, but also so are their enemies. So this greatly increases the stack rate, but greatly increases enemies' chance to apply stacks. So this one was created specifically for the hidden mechanic of element juggling that I have in the game. So the hidden mechanic of element juggling is that each element actually has a weakness. So if you've applied an element stack to an enemy, you can use the weakness that element has to do even greater damage. But here's the catch. When you use that other element, it erases all of your stacks. That's how this works, right? You know, I mentioned that the focus is on building stacks, and that's by using the same element to build those stacks. The minute you use a different element, so say I'm building wind stacks. So here's a wind stack, wind stack, wind stack, wind stack, wind stack. The minute I use an electric attack, all of those wind stacks get deleted when I use an electric attack. However, because stacks are stacking the amount of possible damage you can do, and they have a weakness, when you get to 5 stacks, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can hit them again with wind, and you'll do a lot of damage. But you can completely delete all your stacks by hitting them with electricity and do a buttload of damage. And that is element juggling. And the idea is to build some stacks. You don't have to build up to 5. I have done element juggling with just 1 stack, and actually that's a pretty effective strategy. You just try to get 1 stack on them and then switch the next element and do damage, more damage. And then if you're lucky, the Juggler's Noose, when you do the next stack, so again, using wind and electricity. So right now, you get a wind stack on them. And now if you're lucky, when you hit them with electricity, not only will you do a lot of damage and destroy the stack, but you'll also apply an electric stack right away, if you're lucky. And so now you can juggle. Now you can combo it. So now if you're lucky, you can hit them with fire, that's the next weakness. And if you're lucky, you'll delete the electric stack and apply a fire stack. and then you can hit them with wind, delete the fire, add wind, delete the wind, add electricity, delete the electricity, add fire, and that's juggling, right? That's element juggling. So the Juggler's Noose. This makes it way easier to do that kind of juggling right there by greatly increasing your stack rate. So that is all of the accessories. Let's do a fight. We're going to fight Sharpen Plus, rated for rank 9. I have now built each version of the mini boss and Sharpen Plus. So there's a version for each of your levels. For the boss, it starts at rank 2, so that's going to be level 3. Yeah, level 3. So it's going to be 3, that's rank 2. 5, that's rank 3. 7, that's rank 4. And 9, that's rank 5. There is no rank 1 because I don't expect the player to get to the boss at 1. So, although now that I think about it, I think if you do get the boss, they just wouldn't spawn. If you somehow manage to get to the boss below the level, the boss just wouldn't spawn. I might actually leave it like that, just as like punishment to the player for skipping a bunch of content, because you should not be able to get there by that point. So if you were able to get there below level 3, then you've done something that I didn't intend for you to do. Either some sort of like speedrun hack, or you just outright avoided all of my combat, and somehow managed to kill the boss, the mid-boss, because the mid-boss is a required fight. There's a number of required fights that it would be really, really difficult to get to Sharpen Plus. Yeah, you'd have to use glitches or something to get there. So I might actually just leave it that way. The event wouldn't spawn at all. So it would... the player would get there and nothing would happen, I think, is what would happen with my current logic. And I kind of like that. It'd basically be like saying, yeah, you're not supposed to be here yet. You get here and just there's nothing. So, anyways, so yeah, we can challenge Sharpen Plus. The way that it works, and I talked about this before. God, that's so loud in my headphones. I talked about this before. The way that I wanted to go is that the game gets way more visceral as you level up. So, like, you start dealing more damage, but the enemies are also dealing more damage, like percentage-wise. Like, yeah, sure, you have more health, so they need to do damage. But if we just narrow it down to the percentage of health that they're doing with each of their attack, it greatly increases. Like, where before one attack might be like 10% of your health, now their attacks are like 15% of your health. Or even like 20%. So like it greatly increases. It makes the combat way faster and way snappier. But so you have to pay attention to the gear that you have equipped, which I didn't do before going into this fight. I think I have the Juggler's Noose equipped, which may just fuck me. So we'll find out. This whole conversation I totally forgot was about showing off the new art. So you can see there's some new art for the element skills. So I can show you juggling right now. It didn't apply the wind stack, so I already failed my juggle combo. So you don't have to necessarily juggle. You can just do like I guess you could call it a partial juggle, where you just try to build up as many stacks as you can, and then you just wipe those stacks with a lot of damage. And then you just build up that same element again. That's usually what I do on this fight. I try to build up as many fire stacks as I can. Then I'll attack them with wind, and then I'll just go right back to using fire. Rather than doing the full, like, 3-element juggle, I just juggle back and forth between those 2 elements. I don't remember what weapon I have equipped either. Do I have Thermo Ignition? I think I have Thermo Ignition equipped. Fuck! Ah, I realized the game volume is really low. God damn it! It's gonna get really fucking out of my headphones and turn it down some more. Those 2 electric stacks that I have. It's bad news. Bad news. Yeah, I think I have Thermo Ignition equipped. Nope, that's not Thermo Ignition. Well, at least it was a wind element. So I did bonus damage because he had fire. He had fire stacks on him. Deadly. No, that's right. I don't have Thermo Ignition. So this fight is actually pretty long, so I'm not gonna do the whole fight. Anyways, because I'm actually getting pretty tired. I've managed to stream for an hour, which technically means I've been streaming for 2 hours because I had that whole Tiefel thing before this. So I did want to show off a few more things before I go, because there's a lot that I've done. So yeah, I got all of those. I got the bosses, the different ranks set up. Same thing for the mid-boss as well. He has his own ranks set up. I didn't mean to go here. Where's the mid-boss? Here we go. Here's the mid-boss. Yeah, so I got his rank set up. I think this is the battle controller. Yeah. Oh, I do want to briefly talk about this. I simplified the death event a lot. So let's see if I can demonstrate this. Yeah, this is perfect. I haven't changed it here. So, okay, so here is the battle processing and how it looked before. So we have the if win, this happens. And then if lose, so this is death. It goes through all of this. It processes all of this. And actually, all of this information is exactly the same across every single enemy, every single fight in the game. Some stuff may change, but usually I put that above if lose. This stuff always happens, like, it would be above here. So there'd be something like, I don't know, here. Like, this is where all the additional stuff would go. Everything below that here always happens. And so I simplified this a lot. As you may see, this takes up a lot of lines on the screen. This I don't think really is going to make the programming more efficient. I think it's still going to take just as much processing to run the if-lose condition, if not maybe even more, actually. But it's going to simplify a lot of things because this is all it is now. Common event death. All of this got summarized into that one line, and that's because it's running from this common event here, death, which has the same things except for one slight change. It checks the enemy rank and applies the correct gold loss here. The reason why this is important is because it means that the amount that the player loses when they die is independent of the current enemy level. Why is that important? Well, mimics in the game. And I may use this in other positions, in other places too, but for sure mimics. Mimics have been rated as for level 5. Basically, they are, I expect a level 5 player, your average level 5 player, to be able to defeat a mimic with some difficulty. You know, it's going to be balanced for level 5. However, the problem with that is before, if the amount of gold the player loses is tied to the enemy. So if it's here, not there, just kidding. Here you can see that's the gold loss. So this amount of gold is tied to the enemy. So if it's tied to the enemy and is not an independent function, that means if this enemy, the mimic, is rated for level 5 and a level 1 player decides to attack the level 5 enemy, they are going to lose gold as if they were a level 5 player. And that is devastating. A level 5 player is going to lose a lot more gold than a level 1 player. A lot more gold. So that's why it needs to be independent from the enemy itself. And so the nice thing is about having the function here, with it checking the enemy rank, the enemy rank only gets turned on. The switch that gets turned on is based on the player's level. So basically you can read this as almost like player's level. The player level is equivalent to rank 1. The player level is equivalent to rank 2. The player level is equivalent to rank 3, and so on. So that means even if the level 1 player decides to attack a level 5 enemy, they're still only losing level 1 gold, if that makes sense. So the reason why death is now slightly more process intensive is because it's now checking this every time. And now technically I could actually put the same independence, I could build that independence into the death function that was existing before, the one that I was just showing over here. Like, I could build that into here too, no problem. The problem with doing that is, and the same reason why I wanted to delete all this, is that it just clutters up this screen. Like, I can't expand this window, thanks RPG Maker. I can't expand this window, so everything that you see in this box, that's all I get. And it's no fun having to scroll miles and miles and miles down through a bunch of shit. So if I can reduce the number of lines that are present in the screen at one time, my life is so much easier. I can read this stuff way easier when it's just this. So that's why I moved it over to just a common event. It just cleans everything up. It makes everything easier. And I'm really proud of this, you know? Common events. Cleaned it up. Let's see. So that was a pretty big thing, because I also had to go through all of the enemies. And obviously I haven't finished it yet. I still need to... This is also the wrong battle. So, like, this battle needs to be reassigned to... this is for enemy rank 3? Shouldn't it be rank 2? Hang on. That is rank 2. Where's rank 1? This is the rank 1 battle. Weird. Did I might have just... I think I did the wrong thing. I think I assigned the... I know what this is. I had copied over Sharpen Plus's combat controller. So this is the combat controller. And Sharpen Plus, of course, like I said, you're expected to reach Sharpen Plus at enemy rank 2, which is, level 3 or level 4, somewhere around there. So there's only these, because this is just a copy of Sharpen Plus's controller. So I need to change that to rank 2, rank 3, and rank 4. And we'll just copy page, paste page, rank 5. There we go. So, yeah, that is the combat controller there. Enemy rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this stuff gets copied like this. So we're just going to take all of this and delete it and paste this. Change the battle processing to semicolon rank 2. Where's that? Semicolon rank 2. And repeat. Delete, paste, change. Down here. Yep, rank 3. Delete, paste, change. Rank 4. And delete, paste, change. Rank 5. There we go. And it's just so much cleaner. All of the regular enemy encounters definitely have had this changed. There are some scripted encounters I'm probably not going to go back through and change because, like I said, functionally it works exactly the same. And in fact, processing probably takes more to process the multiple if statements than just using the old method of having it all within the if lose function. So yeah, it's not important that I change all of them, but I did change most of the regular enemy encounters, not the scripted ones. So yeah, so that's been simplified. Oh yeah, I guess we're just gonna jump right into this. Say hello to the last island. So if we go back to the seas, so last time I had talked about just having the 3 primary islands that you need to go to for the boss, which are these 3, here, here, and here. So these 3 islands you have to go to get to the boss. However, I did have a bonus island up here, which is the optional island, and this is where the player would be able to get the accessory, the special accessory for this level. And this is what the inside of the island looks like, and it is a horrific jumping puzzle. There is one slight change to it, and I believe if I load my save game, you will get to see the other thing that I worked on, which is the intro sequence for the level. So when you first arrive at the level, it will play this intro sequence. Because my save game, when I had saved it originally, did not have that event at all on the map, the event never ran, so even though I've been to the level, it never saw that event, so it plays out anyways. I'm going to fast forward through it though, so you can either pause to read it or just watch it play out and fast forward, because I don't want to spoil the story until the game is closer to being finished. Also, the music is all fucked up because, again, I had already been in this level before, so the music was already playing. The music should not have been playing yet. So, yeah. I should mention right there that so there's some stuff that goes on in the background during that event too, which is just checking the player's involvement with the community. For example, if the player had never met that character before, then they say something different to the character. But that character is someone in the city itself, the town. So if you had met the character, then they would say something different. Also, depending on the player's or the town's community happiness level, when he's walking off and he jumps and says, "Oh, I think I just remembered something," that's the point when, if the community happiness is high enough, he would make a remark saying, "Oh, I think one of the other townspeople used to navigate these seas. You should go talk to him about getting a map." If you remember correctly, if you remember, I talked about implementing a map for this area to make it easier to navigate. So it would be during that time that he informs the player that one of the other characters might have a map. And that would start that quest. It would turn on a switch to say that quest is active. So even if you have this knowledge in advance, you can't go prod the guy for the map. You have to actually have the community rank at the correct level. So the reason why I loaded this game was to actually show you do I have it? Let's make sure I can actually. Yes, I can. Okay. So I can show you this. I can show you the lighting too. I totally forgot. Last time I mentioned I was going to show you these caves, but I totally forgot to show off the caves because there is a lighting system implemented through plugins, so you can kind of see that here. So yeah, you can see that it basically creates a black overlay with see-through spots of color. So like that one up there is red, this one is blue, and then that one down there is green. So it kind of creates the illusion of light. So it's very lightweight, and all of the caves have this implemented in them in some form or another. I think this one might have a more interesting use case of it. Yeah. So this is the race event, and so if you look at the left side, the player actually is going to climb the right side, the side I'm going down now. So the player is normally climbing up this, but what you'll notice is that you can actually see the other side where the torches are. And the torches kind of act as a way to illuminate where the bad guy is, so you can see how much progress the bad guy has made climbing up the other side. So it's almost kind of like a status bar, I guess you could say, a loading bar on the other end. So yeah, I kind of use the light, I guess, in an interesting way, sort of, more or less. It's not super interesting, but you know, it's more than just making things look pretty. So, speaking of, however, if we go to the optional island in the northeast corner, technically the map is going to call it the southwest corner because it's going to be mirrored. I'll explain that later when I have a map, maybe. I can explain why that happened. Or if you remember a couple of streams back, I mentioned that I had to flip the map around. But anyways, it's not important. Alright, so here's the optional one. So if you go here, it's just like, oh, I can't, oops. You're just like, oh, I can't see anything. What do I do? So, this is probably kind of a dick dev move, but the puzzle is really that you just had to read the item description. If you read the item description and use your brain for a minute, use to destroy debris and light up dark areas. What is this place? It's a dark area. There we go. Now you can see. Hooray! And now you can jump across. And I tested all of these little jump pads that I had to put to make sure that this worked. It was super fun and didn't take forever. And then you go over here and you get the item. There you go, you get the heavy earrings here. Hooray! And then we can go see Sharpen Plus. On a slight side note about that map too, by the way. I tried implementing the mini-map plugin that I had previously talked about, and I couldn't get it to work. I don't know what's wrong with it. I tried disabling all of my other plugins just to see if it was not happy about my setup of plugins. I don't know why, but anyways, I disabled all my other plugins except for it, and it still didn't work, so I don't know. Really no clue. There we are. Now we'll visit Sharpen Plus. Just like before, there's going to be some story stuff. I'm going to fast forward through it because I don't want to spoil any story stuff. You will get to hear their voice lines, though. I like their voice lines. There we go, Sharpen Plus. And because I have the heavy earrings equipped, I can't do regular attacks. You'll notice that Plus just uses a skill there called Static Discharge, which did no damage but applied 1 stack of electricity to me. That's one of the skills that would get applied with the Hag's Hat, you know, the other accessory that adds new skills to the player. So that's one of the skills. The difference between the player's version of that skill and Plus's version of that skill is that Plus's version has an 85% chance of applying it. So it is almost guaranteed to apply it, but not 100%. Oh, they've applied 3 stacks already? That's probably death. Yeah. I'll go ahead and play out the death part. I'll actually read it too. I'll let you guys have this. No, it didn't play it! Oh no! Why didn't it play it? I'd already tested this. What happened? Oh, it's probably because I changed the death common event. It's probably a combination of the death common event and having the new ranks. So the new battle controller. So that controls which version of Sharpen Plus that you fight based on your level. Damn it. I was actually going to give you guys a short taste of I guess the writing. It's not really story, but they make some funny remarks and then kick you off the lighthouse when you die. Make a couple of funny remarks, literally kick you off the lighthouse, and then it fades to black and you spawn back in town. That's death when you fight them. But it didn't work. Damn it. Is there anything else? I don't know. I did kind of try to work on if you win against Sharpen Plus. I wasn't really feeling it. Like I tried doing some right. Oh, that reminds me. Do I want to show this? I feel like it's a huge spoiler, but I kind of want to show it. If you've made it this far, an hour and 28 minutes in, then I guess you're really dedicated to this. I think most people by now probably would have stopped watching. So I suspect no one or only one person has made it this far. So I'll go ahead and show this off just for you guy, who stuck around this long. So at the end of each level, I talked about having this special tile set here, the end of reality, right? So it switches over to this temporarily, and so I needed an excuse to get there, right? What tile set was this using? Was it outside? Yeah, okay. So, whenever you activate whatever the end of level thing is, in the case of the lighthouse, it's going to be the fire at the top of the lighthouse. There's going to be an animation that plays. And this animation works very similarly to the transfer animation, where I had to use images, PNG images, to basically create the animation. It's a lot simpler than the mouse transfer animation, because that used a lot of frames. I didn't feel like making a bunch of frames by hand for this animation, so it's much more simple. But it uses the same concept of using static images that the game just cycles through a common event, and I will show that off. Because I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty fucking cool. So, let's start a new game, so we'll be here, and I'll show it off. Alright, system break animation. This may spoil a lot for the game, but it's super fucking cool. In fact, let's switch over to, for the full effect, I'm turning off my webcam and just leaving the game for the full effect, because I think it's so cool, man. I spent a long time getting the timing on all of this right, too. I want it to be just right so that the player might have a moment to panic and might actually think something happened. So let's do it. System break. It's so fucking cool, man. I really like it. It works so well. So, yeah, so that's the system break animation. It's so cool. I really like it. I'm really happy with it. I especially like how it transitions out, and it suddenly everything is like this, and I think the players would just be like, "What?" So, I think it's super cool. I can't wait to actually implement it properly. I tried, I really did, but like, I don't know, getting the timing right from like activating the fire at the top of the lighthouse to then, activating that animation and then going into like the story stuff that should happen at that point. Like it's I just wasn't feeling it. I had a tough time getting it to the point where I was happy with it, and so I don't know. I'll probably work on some of that this week. But yeah, that's everything that I did this week, I think. Of course, last time I forgot. Oh, well, that wasn't that wasn't my animation. That was just it, just being weird. Anyways, yeah, I think that's everything that I'd done this past week. Of course, like I said, last time I wound up forgetting about the showing off the lighting. So there's always a potential that I forgot something else. But anyways, I think that's everything for this week. And so I'm also very tired. It's nearly 12 o'clock. I've been streaming for a long time because I did that TEFL thing. If you didn't check it out, go check out that TEFL thing. Even if you're not involved in teaching, you get to hear me rant about a shitty company. And also, check out my other stuff. music and my book and my previous game. All of those things are linked down in the description below. From now on, I think I'm going to be streaming on YouTube exclusively. Because like I said, I don't really get any watches, any viewers on Twitch. And lately, I've just been having poor connectivity with Restream. So I don't know, I don't really want to use it. I don't want to deal with it. So yeah, I think I'm going to just stream exclusively on YouTube now. So check you guys next time. I'll be back next week. Probably just doing game dev stuff. No Tieful complaints or anything like that. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and see you next time.